President Trump is celebrating the end of the war in Gaza, but questions remain about the ceasefire's next phases. And Trump's latest tariffs go into effect today as his trade war with China continues. Good morning, I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. President Trump says the war in Gaza is now permanently over with the release of all remaining living hostages to Israel. But as NPR's Abdelrahman reports, the next phases of that plan need to be worked out.
Trump's plan calls for Arab peacekeeping forces to be sent to Gaza to fill a vacuum of power there after Hamas. But Egypt says it wants to see a UN Security Council mandate first. And after 2 years of intense Israeli bombardment, Gaza will need to be rebuilt from the ground up. Even if wealthy Arab Gulf states agree to cover much of that investment, it's unclear who exactly will oversee how it's spent. Another sticking point is Hamas disarmament. Before Israeli troops withdraw from inside Gaza, where they're occupying about half of the territory, Hamas will need to decommission its rockets, grenades, and other weapons. That process is still under negotiation. Aya Batrawi, NPR News, Dubai.
As Hamas released hostages, Israel released around 1,700 Palestinians and returned them to Gaza. Israeli authorities have identified the bodies of 4 deceased hostages whom Hamas handed over from Gaza. The bodies of 24 other hostages still remain in Gaza. NPR's Daniel Estrin has more from Tel Aviv.
An Israeli autopsy has identified the remains of the 4 bodies handed over Monday. The Israeli military says it believes one 26-year-old Israeli hostage was injured in the October 7th attack 2 years ago and died of his wounds, accusing Hamas of not giving him proper medical care. It says it believes another hostage, a citizen of Nepal, was killed in captivity during the first months of the war. The identities of the other hostage bodies returned have not yet been confirmed by Israel. Families of Israeli hostages have expressed surprise and anger that Hamas did not hand over more bodies. Some bodies are missing or under rubble, and there will be an international effort to recover their remains. It's unclear how many bodies Hamas has currently in its possession. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
President Trump's latest tariffs have taken effect this morning. Tariffs ranging from 10 to 50% will now apply to imports of lumber, imported furniture, and kitchen cabinets. Trump is threatening to impose a 100% tariff on all Chinese imported goods starting November 1st. China is limiting the exports of its rare earth minerals used in key electronic goods. Now, China is sanctioning 5 U.S.-linked subsidiaries of a South Korean shipbuilding company. NPR's John Ruich explains.
The companies are U.S.-linked firms under South Korea's Hanwha Ocean, one of the biggest shipbuilders in the world. Organizations and individuals in China are prohibited from doing any business with the 5 firms, effective immediately. The measures come as the U.S. started imposing port fees and other measures on Chinese maritime logistics and shipbuilding entities. The ministry says in a statement the U.S. measures amount to protectionism and violate World Trade Organization rules and a U.S.-China maritime agreement. The ministry says it's investigating U.S. acts that, quote, endanger the secure and sound development of China's shipping, shipbuilding, and related industries. And China is imposing its own reciprocal port fees on U.S.-linked vessels. John Ruich, NPR News, Beijing.
The federal government shutdown has now reached 2 weeks. Republican and Democratic lawmakers still don't see eye to eye on a spending bill to bring it to an end. The Senate is scheduled to vote again later today on a spending measure, but most observers expect it to fail. Meanwhile, thousands of government workers got layoff notices last week. The shutdown is putting more than 40 million Americans at risk of losing their food assistance. From member station WUSF, Gabriella Paul spoke with a mother who was worried about feeding her family.
Taylor Grant feeds her family of 5 with help from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, and WIC, which supports women, infants, and children. Both programs may soon run out of money. Grant says her family is already struggling.
Last month, we went 2 weeks, maybe more, with barely making it, barely eating. So it's really hard. And then hearing the government shut down, and if they don't open back up soon, that I don't know if I'm going to get benefits after this month until they reopen.
No action has been taken to keep SNAP afloat past October. Last week, the Trump administration promised tariff revenues would keep WIC up and running. For NPR News, I'm Gabriella Paul in Tampa.
Maine Democratic Governor Janet Mills says she is running for the U.S. Senate in her state. She says she's taking on incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins and President Trump.
I won't sit idly by while Maine people suffer and politicians like Susan Collins bend the knee as if this were normal. My life's work has prepared me for this fight, and I'm ready to win. This election will be a simple choice. Is Maine going to bow down or stand up? I know my answer.
However, Mills must still compete in Maine's Democratic primary election. Democratic Senate candidate and oyster farmer Graham Plattner is backed by Senator Bernie Sanders. Plattner says that he has several $1 million in donations already in the bank. The Trump administration says it'll continue with its immigration enforcement in the Chicago area. National Guard troops have been temporarily blocked from being on the street. Chicago Catholic Cardinal Blaise Supich is describing the Trump administration's immigration actions as intended to terrorize.
Our pastors are telling us that attendance at Mass, particularly in Latino communities, is down because people are afraid to come out. That's very sad. But they're also afraid to go to grocery stores, get medical help.
Separately, Los Angeles County officials will decide today whether to declare a state of emergency. This would provide them with the power to offer assistance to county residents they say have been financially harmed by ongoing federal immigration raids. A heavy storm is pulling away into the Atlantic Ocean. The nor'easter poured heavy rain from the Carolinas up to New England over the holiday weekend. There's been strong wind, surf, and beach erosion. Mark Mammarelli owns a beach house in central Delaware.
With the heavy wind and the heavy surf and the high tide, we just had an extraordinary loss of sand here on the beachfront.
In the western U.S., the remnants of a typhoon have been striking the coast of Alaska. Officials say the devastation is heavy. Some people held onto debris as they watched their homes float away. At least one person has died. 2 more are missing. There's been torrential rain in Mexico in the past few days that has left 64 people dead. Officials say dozens of other people are still missing. The heavy rain hit 5 Mexican states near the Gulf of Mexico over the weekend. Mexican authorities fear the death toll will rise. President Claudia Sheinbaum says 100,000 homes have been affected by flooding and landslides. The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected an appeal from conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. He wanted the justices to block a $1.4 billion defamation judgment against him. Jones was successfully sued by Sandy Hook families after he spread lies that the Sandy Hook school shooting was a hoax. You're listening to NPR News.